adaptable you are.
I know. Oh, yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm hitting the go live button right now, and we'll just talk through it for just a second. I'm going to make sure that everything's muted so that my stuff isn't, but we are live. And everyone can start to say hi. We'll see, make sure that that's streaming. Do you see it at your end, Gary?
Not yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going down.
It's going down. I'm gonna just wait like 10 more seconds and just see. Do I get notifications when I'm live? I don't know.
I usually do because I set a reminder to tell me when this goes live because this is so important. This conversation right here.
Important.
And what if you accidentally went live one day?
Well, that would just be awkward.
Oh, it says live now. Okay, and there's one watching.
Yay.
So I don't know who that is, but hey guys, hey everyone, welcome to the 24th. I don't know if we call this episode or like 24th in our series of awesome webinars. Yeah, 24th edition, 24th thing of the ASC webinar series, which we have now officially done a cycle twice around because this is 24. We've been doing these monthly of these awesome webinars that are, catered to really diving deep on a specific topic in the Accountability Success Circle, which you can check out at accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. We focus on, bringing a community together of people who are, driven to improve their lives, but doing it in a fun, flexible, adaptable way, and really just like accomplishing goals and supporting each other through that process. And so this month, and just like every month, we have a theme. And for us this month, for the month of August, the theme is adaptability. And it's all about being able to, get with the times. Like everything's obviously in constant flux and change, and we want to be able to adapt to that so that we're not, in this reactive mode in a stressful way, but more of being able to say, being able to be intentional and all of that. And some of that involves resilience. Some of that involves, being able to, be quick on your feet. And today we are talking about growing your resilience. Your resilience muscles through play. And I love this conversation that we're going to have because we always try to talk about things that are fun and lighthearted and not so super tactical and like heavy. So why not talk about play? And we have an amazing guest with us today, Kirsten Anderson, who is here with us. She is, I can't find my notes. This is just a day of not having my stuff together. She's the founder of Integrate Play Solutions, and I'm going to turn it over to her to do a little bit more of a more legit introduction because I am admittedly hungry and I'm going to sit here and eat a sandwich through this. So this is me trying to play because it's a lunch hour conversation, at least for me. But Kirsten, thank you so much for being here today. And I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell everybody what your company is about and what who you are and what you live for and all of that stuff.
Thank you.
Yes.
Of course, Gary's the greatest hype person. I should just hand it over to Gary.
Be like, yeah.
How about I do that, and then you can just confirm or deny what's up with that.
Excellent. True or not true?
Yes. All right. Cool. So Kirsten Anderson, as April mentioned, is the founder of Integrate Play Solutions, and she is one of those people that eats her own dog food. Not literally, but she's all about, hey, how can you use the power of play in a playful mindset to advance in all areas of your life? She lives it, she breathes it, and that's one of the things I love about Kirsten. Prior to being a consultant using techniques like Lego Serious Play and other modalities, she owned a toy store, for crying out loud. And so she is like neck deep in the world of play. And we are so honored that she is joining us to talk about adaptability, resilience, and how you can use play as a mechanism for doing that. So, welcome, Kirsten. How did I do?
That was awesome. Yes, you covered lots of the play history there.
Yay! And since we are talking about play, Kirsten, what would you say one of your play profiles is?
Well, I really, you know me very well, and I'm big on the buffet of life, and so I really do identify with all the play profiles, but I do love like the physical play. Like my top favorite way to play is in the water. A bit of a, mermaid. So any lake time, river time, ocean time, that is probably and just walks in nature, like forest bathing, hugging trees every day, like that. Those are really like a big way to play. But then within my work, it looks different. So how my play personality shows up in work is a little different, a little bit more creative play and, that artistic, drawing and designing PowerPoints and, playing with, doing things in a creative way.
Cool. Well, welcome. I love it. And since we are talking about play personalities, we are going to be adaptable, and I'll share mine. And this, if you're not familiar with what are the different play personalities, this all stems from the work of Dr. Stuart Brown in his work on play and how it shapes your brain and your mind and all these other things. So definitely check it out. For me personally, and actually I'll leave a link in the comments if so far we have D. Hey D, who is watching it live, but if you're watching the replay, we'll leave the link in the comments where you can check that out. So for me, my play personality, jokester, I guess, is one of the big ones. I'm a big practical joke type person. I love goofing around. And storyteller would be another one that is up there. And fortunate for me, I get to use both of those in the work that I do. And now that April is finished munching for the moment, April, what would you say?
I don't know all the play personalities, or do I?
I should have called mine kinesthetic if I was going with.
Yeah, right. Very
Brown,
movement focused.
The physical one.
I'm very like movement.
So,
how many personalities?
April, there are 7.
7. I mean, we probably talked about this before, but
we have. But just
my brain, is like
you're very
mush.
adaptable. So just pick one. How do you play? How did you play as a kid? And just name it.
I play often. No, I'm kidding. 7. Like, so I'm just gonna make it up right now.
Yeah, sure. Why not? And I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
I think my play has to be very habitual. I get into when I do play, like I get like attached to something and then I like stick with it. So I don't know if that's like anything, but I just noticed that like the way I play, there's always like working toward a goal. There's always a, like repetitive motions and like things that I don't know. So that's kind of where I see it in terms of the way that I want to play. Like if I want to do it, it's like I want to do it in a very habitual manner. Until I like burn out on it or whatever, and then want to switch to something new. So I don't know if that falls under anything.
I was gonna say, is there competition in there?
Yep. See, I was gonna say the same thing. April is the competitor, and it's so funny because April currently is, on the theme of adaptability. April realized some things that weren't in alignment with what she wanted, and then she adapted and adjusted her routine to fit. And so she's been running. She actually ran a 5K recently, a virtual 5K.
Yeah.
And she has another one in 10 days. And so I would like to say that one of her play personalities is the competitor. And for the competitor, that means you like specific rules and playing to win, not necessarily against other people, but winning against your own self, your previous self and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You feel exhilarated, competing on, in sports or in the boardroom or something like that. So,
it's funny because I don't like competing against people, but like the competition is with myself. It's like I want to get my pacing to be faster, and like I feel better when I beat myself. But like when I'm playing games, I'm like, if I win too much, I'm like, oh, I want everybody to win. So like I will sabotage like if I see that I'm winning, just because I don't want to be like the Tom Brady or the like the Patriots of the play world, right? Like it's like I want to win, but I want everybody to feel like they win too. And some of my friends have been like, but then that doesn't feel like a real win. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, it's fine. But
Yes.
yeah, so it is very competitive with myself rather than.
It ties in well with the accountability circle too, like that
Right?
competition with yourself. Yeah.
Yep.
So yes. And so why are we saying this? Because as the title suggests, we are talking about how you can use the power of play as a way to be more adaptable and be more resilient. And I think it's important. I like to define things just to level set everything. And so, essentially, what does it mean to be adaptable? What does it mean to be resilient? According to, I don't know, I think it's the Oxford Dictionary or whatever, adaptability is the quality of being able to adjust to new conditions. And, or the capacity to be modified for a new use or purpose. That's adaptability. And then resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, elasticity. And why is that important? Well, I don't know about you, but unless you've been living under a rock, the last 15 plus months have been very volatile, has been very complex and stuff like that. We'll get into that. But being able to adjust is going to, allow you to have that growth that if you're watching this, you're probably into that sort of thing. So, yes. And so, Kirsten, what do you think about that?
I love what April said about getting with the times. I just thought, like that's a great expression to start with, because that's, exactly what you said. Like the last 18 months has been getting with the times. Like every day, new information coming at us, and that dreaded word that we've heard a million times is very relevant. Pivot. Like the companies that didn't, they definitely died quickly, and those that did, they were prime examples of adaptability. So those of us that were able to adapt, you and I, and like the three of us, and most people listening, probably had to adapt in some pretty major ways. All my work was in person prior, besides meetings were on Zoom, but my paid work, all my keynotes, facilitations were all in person. So it's so different over the last 18 months.
Yeah, agreed. And April, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I think that, whether or not people, adapted, or like everybody had to, right? We had these external limitations that were placed on us, and whether, like we had to either, comply or rebel or, get angry about it. But our lives in the last 18 months have definitely shifted. I get to a point where now, I would live off of my computer. And then when everything in terms of connection and everything was focused on being on your computer, I'm looking for every outlet that I can to not be on my computer, which meant having to kind of revamp entire systems that were like my livelihood, like my personal calendar. I can't even look at it anymore. So now I have a paper calendar. So like trying to adapt to making myself feel more comfortable, because it's, the Zoom burnout was real. Like I think I burned out probably before Zoom burnout became a thing, or Zoom fatigue, because I was already like tired of it before the pandemic started. And then it was like, oh, but this is all I get now. So goodbye. So
said someone who has a competitor play personality.
Yeah.
She's like, hey, look, I burned out before burning out on Zoom was the thing.
I'm the top burner outer.
Burner. I would.
Yeah, so I think that having to adapt is super important because, especially when there's things that you can't control, you can choose to, get angry about it and like not change, or you can change and continue on with your life. It really just depends on what's, your priority. Do you want to be a whiner and complain and deal with it that way, or do you want to be able to make tweaks so that you can still move forward, right? Because that's what we want in life, right? To move forward.
Yes, and you bring up a good point, which brings me to the next point. Is it possible to adapt? Are we sort of set in our ways? If you would ask my dad, like maybe like I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, he would be the type of person that was like, nope, how I am is how I am. The phrase like you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and I don't know about you, but a number of people probably thought that, and they probably thought, you know what, my circumstances are my circumstances, and there's nothing I can do about it. However, I there's a lot of research out there that begs to differ. In the book Mindset: The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck, she talks about two different mindsets. We have a fixed mindset, so that's the type of person that believes that have that sort of belief that nope, I can't learn anything new. How it is how it is. Or you have a growth mindset, and someone who has a growth mindset, believes that you can learn. And there's a lot of data that suggests that if you have a growth mindset, that you are more resilient. You can be more adaptable. And if you don't think you have a growth mindset, well, guess what? There are ways to sort of shift that ways of thinking too. And hence why we are here. But the whole downside of, not having that growth mindset and just being very fixed in your ways is that you could essentially be the person that when faced with a situation like I don't know, a global pandemic, and you're faced with the situation like Kirsten was, where your business was specifically one way, and then everything was sort of flipped upside down, and you just say, well, I guess there's nothing I can do, and you sort of throw in the towel, or you're adaptable, resilient, someone like Kirsten, someone like April, and willing to experiment, willing to do something different. And so before we go into, giving some actionable things on what you can do and to be more resilient and how you can use the play to do that, I'd love to just briefly chat about that sort of, fixed mindset versus growth mindset. We'll start with Kirsten. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? And, any sort of, yeah, let's just start with that.
Yeah, well, while you were talking about like those that didn't, that didn't evolve and didn't experiment and didn't try new things, I think one of the very first steps in growing is accepting reality. So like if you're in denial about what is happening, you're going to be stuck a lot longer. And so that acceptance of what's happening and that things have changed and therefore there's a problem or there's a challenge that may need to be overcome, like you may need to make those experiments. Because if you're just like that ostrich with the head in the sand kind of situation, like, oh yeah, like, we'll go back to normal, this will blow over, then you're not going to have that growth mindset. You're not going to get curious about different ways of being and opening yourself up to possibilities. So I think that's kind of like the foundational first step is like observing what's happening around you and being open to observing, and is there a challenge here or is there not a challenge here that I need to make. So that reality is like take that data in, absorb that data. And like it doesn't have to be overnight, some people take longer to get there than others, and like no judgment, but like once it sinks in that that this is a real challenge for your business or for your personal growth, then I think then it requires action.
Love it. And April, what do you think?
I think the only thing that I want to add, because I think this is all so great so far, is that, having a growth mindset is a choice. A lot of times people with the fixed mindset are probably the ones that aren't even they don't have the awareness that they have a fixed mindset because they don't know what is possible with a growth mindset. So there could be this piece of, lack of, understanding or knowledge around these different types of mindsets. But like the first step to having a growth mindset is, making the choice that you want to try to be open to that. That open-mindedness, the bringing judgment levels, down to little to none, or at least being able to separate judgment from observations and all of that is part of that process. And so, people who choose to stay in that fixed mindset are not going to move, right? Because there is no growing there. It's literally staying in place. And so we want to make sure that, people are aware of what is possible with a growth mindset and encouraging people to see how that is. And a lot of it can be wired from, the things that they have experienced and the ways that they were taught. And, but without the open-mindedness, you'll continue to be in that fixed mode. So, and there's, I think we are, as a society, becoming more open-minded, or, trying to, especially with, the uniqueness that comes with being human. But, some people are still set in their ways. And so it's just a matter of making a choice of do I want to stay set in my ways, or do I want to be open to what else is possible? So that's all I have to add.
Yay. Awesome. And before we move on, want to take a moment and say what's up to the crew. Everyone's here. John McKenzie's here. Terry Brown's here. D Fuller's here. So what's up to all of y'all?
And we just want to mention too that, for those of you who are not in the ASC and you're seeing this, people who show up to some of our, key events and stuff like that, they get put into drawings at the end of each month for prizes. And Terry was one of our winners this past month. So who could it be? It could be D. I think D was the month before. Maybe it's John's turn this month. We'll see.
Right. We'll see.
This is a great way to kind of play along with, maybe that's that competition part of me too, right? It's like you show up and you can win stuff. How cool is that? So if you're not a part of the ASC, you should join soon. Now, or after this hour is up. Okay, there's my PSA.
Cool. Now back to our regular scheduled programming. So yes, what we've been talking about, we are just, is the tip of the iceberg. We're talking about adaptability. We're talking about resilience, and we're just starting to define things. We had mentioned how adaptability is all about, being able to shift. We mentioned that it's a choice. We mentioned that in order to be adaptable, in order to have that growth mindset, you have to have awareness that there is other possibilities. And in addition to that, you have to, as Kirsten said so brilliantly, be able to surrender and accept the reality. You may not like the reality. However, you need to accept what is happening is happening. And for some, that takes a lot. And so this is a great transition into playfulness and getting down to the meat of it is why, playfulness and being playful and playing games and just playing in general, how can that help you be more adaptable? And so let's jump into it. More definitions, because I just want to make sure everyone knows what's going on. One definition that we didn't mention, but we'll probably bring it up, and I just want to make sure that you all know. It's an acronym, and yesterday, Kirsten and we wanted to make sure that we're saying it correctly, and it's an acronym, VUCA, and that is VUCA. It's which stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It was first coined by the military as a way to train the troops to be able to adapt and in environments where they have no idea what's going on. And it's since been sort of taken over by like the personal development corporate world, as a way to describe what's going on in the world. Way back when things were more predictable. You get a job, you hopefully land a nice, a nice pension or whatever. You work for like 20 plus years, you retire. Very predictable. However, that's not the case anymore. Anything could happen. And so VUCA is a great way to describe what's going on in the world. And also, we have to prepare for it. And so now, playfulness. And I want to start with Kirsten, since she is an expert in this area. For crying out loud, she's been playing her whole life. What does it mean to be playful, Kirsten?
Oh, what does it mean to be playful? Well, I would, to relate it to this topic, because I mean, it's so all encompassing. So I won't dive into all, what does it really mean to be playful overall? And if we asked 100 people, we'd get 100 definitions, because it's a moving target, right? It's different for each of us, as described here, that we all play differently, shows up differently. But if we think back to the way we were as children, very young children, 3, 4, and how adaptable kids are, it can be a huge source of inspiration if we're looking to increase our adaptability skills. And so that is my top. I've got 5 tips on how you can bring play, how you can use play to be more adaptable. But looking for inspiration from people who are demonstrating adaptability, whether it's adults or you have kids in your lives that are showing adaptability, or it's your own memories of your own childhood and how you adapted, on the playground, at recess, when something bad happened and you were like, oh, okay, we're just going with the flow. Oh, we're not going here. Oh, we're going here. Oh, all right, okay. So I would think that is, I mean, there's so many different ways that we can use. I don't want to over talk when you guys have so much to add as well. But that's one of my top tips is look, observe, listen, to the people that are around you that are being adaptable. If you want to bring more adaptability in, and then take action on that. Bring
Yes.
those little steps in, those little actions.
Awesome. Said by someone who has that kinesthetic sort of playful mindset. I love it. Very well said. April, what's your definition of playfulness?
I don't know. So for me, I feel like when I think of playfulness, and maybe this is just because this is part of my personality and who I am, it's I think about cheerfulness. So there's this, aspect of, the feeling that comes from what happens when you play. And for me, playing means fun, which is one of my top values, which means happiness, and the feeling that is associated with it when I'm playing, ideally, is that I'm having a ton of fun and I'm cheerful. And so there's this positivity aspect of playfulness for me. But then I think in playfulness there is mixing that feeling of joy with creativity, and and kind of doing things that are against what seems conventional, right? It's if something feels like you're giving too much effort to it, it feels like work, right? If I'm playing a game, I'm playing, but I feel like I'm doing it because I'm obligated. It's not, it feels like work, and it feels heavy. And so there has to be this lightness of you're doing it because you're choosing to, but then you're also leveraging that creativity, and then you're bringing in the joy. So that's kind of the recipe for me on what playfulness is. Just pulling that out of because I think about
Yes.
do I know what that means? But when I've never had to really verbalize it, so that was a fun exercise.
I think April picked up on a really important word there, the chosen part, that you choose it, and the pleasure part is definitely a big part of it, and so that's those 2 words, chosen and pleasure, are also tied into flow and being present, and it being fully absorbed, it's fully absorbing, and you lose track of time. So some people might say play/flow. So I would add that as well as part of the playfulness definition, and and that carrying on that it will look different for everybody.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. 100%. And having said that, I like everyone to just, again, think about a time when you were playful. And it could be playing a game. It could be, immersed in painting or some sort of, activity, reading a book. And I bet you, like, what we said here, time went by like this. You were in that state of flow. And one of the cool things about play, and I want to take a moment and just go to like games specifically, just because with games, there's that challenge element. You embrace the challenge. For me, I grew up playing a lot of board games, playing a lot of sports, playing a lot of video games. And yeah, if it was completely predictable, I don't know about you, but that would just get boring, right? Like, we thrive on the novelty. We thrive that it's not easy, and we open and welcome it with open arms. However, we think about real life, and I believe real life is very similar. However, we look at it with a different mindset of like, oh my gosh, I thought 2020 was going to be this, and this. And then when it wasn't, we got up in arms. Now, again, going back to what Kirsten says, the acceptance, I'm not saying you had to like it, but it is what it is. And that's one of the things, about, playing and playfulness, is that when you're met with adversity, you take it head on with positivity. So, Kirsten, yeah, what are your thoughts on the link, between playfulness and resiliency? Because you said you have five tips.
Well, I don't know if you define them as tips, but I think to build on what you just said, and literally about building on, and it, your background in improv. I was thinking about yes and, that yes, like basically we're saying, yes, this is the reality of 2020 and now 2021. Freaking now just when we thought things were over, now there's Delta, what? And so we're like, yes, and this is how we're going to deal with it. So adding on our own seeing opportunities. So like looking for those opportunities, being open to opportunities, taking that offer, that would be one thing I would say. So yes, anding the world, like what comes at you, all the challenges that come at you. That novelty factor that you talked about, like that would be my second one, like trying new things. And when you think about kids, they're constantly trying new things. They're constantly going to new places and being exposed to new people they've never met before and new ideas. So we can take that playfulness that we had as kids of constantly having newness, and we can use that to, like, how can I play in a new way that I haven't experienced before? How can I go to work in a different way or write with my left hand? So, build those neural pathways so we're more conditioned to new experiences. And, like as you've said, play is this low stakes way of practicing for the high stakes of real life. And so, we can build those muscles up in our own children and ourselves by having those novel experiences and that building that neuroplasticity. And then third is kind of related to the one before of new experiences, but like for me, I feel like I built a lot of my resilience muscles when I was 18 and traveling around Europe by myself, backpacking, pre-internet, pre-email, no credit card, like hitchhiking alone, like all kinds of misadventures, like scary stuff for any parent wouldn't want to. It's just as well I only sent a postcard home once a month because she wouldn't want to know what was happening. So having those opportunities to test your fear, like to overcome some fears, to take some risks, to take those leaps into new experiences, and then that's rolled up in like making mistakes. So, like when we're making mistakes as kids, we fall off the playground equipment and we get back on again. That's a part of play. And so when we view our life like that as just a falling down moment and we're getting back up again, that helps us look at our life more playfully at like we did when we were kids. And I already spoke to the observing the observing others who were modeling adaptability. So my fifth one is curiosity. So it's a huge one. It's a topic I could talk for the hour just on curiosity, but I think it's a big part of playfulness. It's a big part of who we were as kids, and if we can build up the curiosity muscle, it helps with our resilience and it helps with our adaptability, that we are able to like ask questions, not jump to assumptions. We can just explore more possibilities and just be. Curiosity is about being open, and my three favorite words put together are play with possibilities. And so I think that is a big part of curiosity. So those are my 5 like condensed little tips.
Yay. April, what are your thoughts?
Is there an acronym that you can?
Right? There should be. There will be. Yeah.
Kirsten's really good with acronyms.
Okay, what were they again?
By the way?
I do have an acronym
Didn't you have
called
PAC?
CHARGE.
Oh, charge. That's what it was. Charge.
Yeah, and that is because once the pandemic happened, like I moved to a lot of like connection and belonging work, and then resilience work, and then Gary and I have done some leadership work. So charge was, and the funny part of this is that we keep adding words on. So it's C, so connection, curiosity, and care. So like there's 3 words for and then H was having each other's back. So that, and so this is really about the resilience piece. And A was initially for acceptance, but adoption was added onto that. And R was reframing. And G was gratitude and grace. And E was expectations and exploring. So each time I do it, people add new words that they want me to include in those letters. But
and Kirsten's adapting.
We're adapting the
include
all the words under those letters.
Yeah.
Probably more I've even missed under some of those that people have added, but it's it's great with the little battery. You know, like you look at the battery and you think you wouldn't let your cell phone and my watch are charging here beside me. Like you wouldn't go out on 2% battery, and of course we need to keep charging ourselves, and one of the best ways to charge ourselves is through play to build up those resilience muscles. So
I like that. That is awesome.
Yes. April, what are your thoughts on we're just tipping the surface on making that connection between playfulness, games, and the ability to be resilient? Anything especially because you have an amazing background as a cheerleader and have done amazing things. And I'm curious on, thinking back on your growth in that area and any sort of lessons it taught you on how to overcome adversity and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to resilience, it's kind of all about, being at a certain level and pushing yourself beyond, right? Now I'm like, now all I can
competitor
think about
again.
Is the
Here she comes.
I'm like, it's always about like pushing yourself, right? Because, you want to constantly grow, and I was sharing in the community earlier with my weekly theme challenge, this whole concept of like the only constant is change. And so allowing yourself to, it's kind of like building a muscle, exactly what we're talking about. It's, like a physical muscle, you have to lift those weights in order for your muscle to get bigger. And so your resilience muscles, you need to kind of put yourself in those positions that may not feel the most comfortable in order to feel more comfortable down the road. And so, I tend to, be very aware about the things that I feel like I could improve on. Promoting myself is probably one of the things that I struggle with most. And having to put myself out there, or having to figure out different ways to promote myself without feeling the ickiness of whatever comes with that, and pushing myself to do it, because the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? It's all about the practice. Like even when I took improv, it was like, I like being on stage, but I also don't like being the spotlight on the stage. But then how do I contribute in a team improv setting? Like I don't want to just stand there. Like, what's the point of that? And so having to like show up and be like, I'm gonna throw this, suggestion out there and see whatever people do. And sometimes it flops, and sometimes it really, it turns into something beautiful and magical. But like, you have to kind of you kind of have to fail often in order to build the muscle too. Like you need to realize, when you don't do something, things can kind of start piling up, and then you feel this backlog and then the overwhelm, and do you not want to have that overwhelm? So what do you need to do in order to avoid that? Are there certain systems you need to put in place to not do that? And you need to kind of keep pushing that envelope until you either need to like change because whatever you're trying to do is not working, or you start to settle into something that's more comfortable. And so it's almost kind of like problem solving in a way, when I think about doing working towards being more resilient. But you have to take action in order for you to become more resilient, because if you can't just sit there and assume like I'm going to be more resilient just by sitting here. So you have to like take in all the inputs and figure out how to respond to them, because that works your mental muscles and all that stuff. So
yes, I love it. And so a few points here that we mentioned and definitely want to highlight. The fact that when you play, it's a low stakes environment. We are simulating. You think about when we were younger and all the things, that, and we're going to do a really cool sort of thought experiment in just a moment, but just think about like all the growth that kids have in a short period of time. It's all through play, it's all through simulation. We got my son one of those sort of toy sort of house cleaning kits with the broom and the dustpan and the little duster. And he loves playing with it. And I'm like, yes, now maybe you'll help clean up the house. We don't know. I don't know. But again, the whole point is it's enjoyable and you welcome all adversity. And, we've mentioned this multiple times here in the ASC and on our various webinars, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I don't know about you. This stuff is scary and it's hard. And when you were like, hey, let's go and face adversity and have this tough conversation with someone, you're like, I don't know. However, if you had been practicing it in a low stakes environment, you're going to be more likely to do it. And so that's why, play is important. So also want to mention, and I love what Terry, everyone up in the chat, the chat's chat's amazing.
Doing awesome right now. Yeah.
This is where all the insights are happening. But Terry had mentioned for him, play feels like freedom. You can explore ideas and express yourself while being immersed in the experience. Love it. And then, what do we got here? We also have John. John is talking about John's never going to grow up. Whoop, whoop to that. And so play is a refreshing way to maintain that usefulness while adulting, whether it's in a professional or personal familiar setting. And, curiosity is the thing. Yes. Curiosity didn't necessarily kill the cat. The cat has 9 lives, for crying out loud. But the point here is, and there's not there shouldn't be a separation of like, I need to be playful over here and then I need to just work over here. They said the opposite of play isn't work. The opposite of play is depression. And when you can't see your work as play, when you can't bring that playfulness to your like sort of everyday to day, you're going to experience withdrawals. Like that's like the equivalent of saying, hey, let's just stop breathing. Breathing is overrated. However, that's how we see play. We see play as overrated because yes, it's huge. And there's so many different facets to it. And that's why, I love this topic, and I know Kirsten, will feel the same. Play needs a shift in perspective, and this brings me to my thought experiment to prove the point that play can help you be resilient, and you learn through play. I like to invite you to think of what is something that you've played, something that was enjoyable for you, that you did just for the sake of it, and then so that's the first thing. Think about that. Yes, ideally probably when you were a kid because you were probably more pure back then. But it could be something that, you did it as an adult. And so here's the real question is, what skills do you think you're developing by engaging in that seemingly frivolous activity? And so if our gang wants to engage in the chat and put some responses there, I'd love to hear that. If you're watching the replay, love for you to leave a comment. And since Kirsten has an amazing smile on her face and she just did the eyebrow thing, I don't know if that's like a sign like, hey, I want to answer. So Kirsten, I would like to hear from you first, if you're available
Oh,
to answer.
well, I'm hanging with you too, so it's a bit of a perma smile. It may not be indicative of any brilliance, but the answer to my question, like the first I mean, there's, like a lifetime of play experiences, but one of my favorite games to play was Sardines. Have you guys ever played Sardines?
Yeah,
One
that's a fun
person
one.
hides, and then
It's
everyone
reverse
else
hide
is
and
looking
seek.
for them. Yeah, and then when you find them, you hide with them, and then it gets more and more crowded. Like, say if
Oh,
they're
that's
hiding in a closet, then everybody's squished in the closet, and then only one person is looking. So super fun. So what were the skills? And like the first skill I would say that comes from that game is relationship building. So bonding, trust, um, like you're taking risks, you're whether you're hiding or you're out looking, there might be a little bit of collaboration, between players that are talking about, oh, okay, you check over there, I'm going to check over there. And then, oh, why is it so quiet? Everyone, and where were they? So like that problem solving. So some cognitive ability comes into that. There's physical skills, and like if you're contorting yourself into like a tiny little closet. So there's so many skills that you can pull out of that one. What about you, April?
Yes. What about you, April?
So there's two things. Well, so the first thing that I thought about, I was like, is this like too boring to talk about? Like when I think about playing, like, or something that I played, like I feel like I find a lot of joy in doing puzzles, whether it is like doing it with my family or doing it with myself. Like I think even building Legos would be super fun, but I think I'm just triggered by Legos because they're all over my basement, and I'm like, but if I had like a 1700 piece one, I could see myself just building that and doing that because it's very therapeutic. So when I thought about puzzles, I'm like, what skills am I learning? If you're working with people, it is about kind of communication and dividing and conquering and teamwork. There's also like creating a process, right? It's like, let's put all the green pieces here and put all the white pieces here, and organization, which is like all about me, 100% me. But then I was like, is that kind of lame that like I find all this joy out of like organizing, because that's like literally my life is a big jigsaw puzzle, and I'm trying to be like, what can I fit and what can I do here, and like, ooh, I found this piece and I put it, now I get to move on to the next. But it just feels like it never ends. And then at the very end, there's like, you're working toward a goal, so like there's that sense of accomplishment at the end. I was trying to think of like something that was a cooler response, so I'm gonna have two. But
Says the competitor. So she's competing with herself on like she is one upping herself again, competing with herself.
Again. Stop it! Now I feel like I'm like, oh God, am I doing too much?
Acceptance, just that's who you are,
Yeah.
and we love you for it.
So the second one that came to mind, I think about the games that I play like more recently, where I've talked to Gary about this a ton, but like I tend to come into these games where like you come in like the games on your phone, right, where you're in a team environment. He's gonna laugh because like he knows like how
I love this story. I love this story.
Rabbit
Oh my
hole
gosh.
takes me. So I tend to get into like, I'll join other teams, and, like the whole point of the team aspect is so that you can help each other and like, just feel like you're not alone in the game. And I like love talking to the strangers that are on my teams and all this stuff. So there's communication there. But then what ends up happening is that like, I don't either, I can't keep up with like the rules that the team that I'm on are, holding. So like, if I don't want to quit the game, but I want to, like, I'll start my own team. And then I'll like have, I'll foster the team and I'll communicate with the team and I run it the way that I want to. And there's that connection piece in that, and like learning how to connect, but then you're also connecting with strangers who you can't, see, you can't like talk to unless you like, willingly like connect on Facebook, which I have done. But anyways, it's a big learning about leadership and communication, and really trying to like be in together, be in something together so that you don't feel like you're alone. And so, I feel like there's aspects of that, togetherness in both of my examples, but it's just funny because I'll be like, here's an example. So like one of the games that I have been playing for the last like 4 or 5 years, and I kind of come in and out of it, is Toon Blast. So there's like right now there's like 56, 50, that many levels. I'm at like 54 something. And maybe a week ago I was at like 5100. So like I have been playing it a lot recently, but I have this team, and I recently was like, I just want to like clear out the team and like get people who aren't being proactive. And so like I did that, and then I made a couple people angry because I kicked out somebody's wife, and I didn't know, but they never communicated to me. And so there's this like, oh, but like I want people to like feel like they're comfortable and happy and on this team. And so I was like, okay, now I need to be more transparent, and I need to be super communicative about like what I'm doing so that people have the chance to like and it's just funny because that's just how I am in life. And like there's organizing aspect again. It's like, let's all come together. Here's the process, here's the flow, and that's like what I teach in the work that I do. So okay, so it still came back to organizing, which is why I wanted to think about something else in the first place, and it just shows up everywhere. So how you do anything is how you do everything, and I will shut up now.
And another play personality, which April is a key component of this, because she didn't talk about the game with the regatta and stuff like that. But one play personality is called the director. And when you have a director as a play personality, you enjoy organizing, planning, and orchestrating events. You love to be the one in charge and planning out others' roles. You're comfortable being the center of attention in that scenario.
That's why I'm one of the co-founders of the Accountability Success Circle. I'm like, here, you do this. We'll do this. Yes. I will do this. You do this, and we'll all be happy.
She's amazing at that. And again, the whole point of this is that that is play for you. That is enjoyable. That is pleasurable. And in the book Primed to Perform by Neil Dosey and Lindsay McGregor, they said the 3 intrinsic sort of motivators that leads to high performing teams is play, purpose, and potential. Play as in you see the work that you do as play, as enjoyable, that you want to do regardless. You're solving problems. And this is why it's important to understand what your play personality is, to understand what games you love to play and how it can help you build these superpowers, because this can accelerate learning. This can accelerate your ability to be adaptable and resilient, because according to researcher Karen Previs, she discovered, in order to create a new synapse in the brain, it normally takes 400 repetitions. However, if it's done through play, you can amplify that, and it only takes 10 to 20. And so, that's what it's all about. And that's why play is such a powerful tool, mechanism to help you have that growth mindset, to help you develop new skills and techniques. And I want to make sure I'm, sharing what the peeps in the chat are saying. Dee, she loves a pretend imaginative play, and she said probably help with social interaction, experimenting with adult alternative roles, and creativity. And yes, exactly. And in the book Super Better, Jane McGonigal mentions how you can take advantage of games, and play is your purpose. Going into these things, if your purpose is more escapism, or, you're trying to escape, life and stuff like that, which is, there's a place for that. You're going, you're not going to reap all the benefits. When you play, since your goal is escaping, you are just trying to shut off everything. However, if you go in with the purpose of using it as a way to power up, use it as a way to learn, you're going to reap those benefits. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going to create these new neural pathways that is going to remind you, oh, you know what? This is helping me be more expansive. All right, I need to do that because it's going to do this. And I didn't mention my game, the game that, and it's so interesting because I haven't mentioned this in this sort of context and conversation in a while. And I was like, oh yeah, this is actually a really fun game. So my family, we love playing Uno, the card game where the goal is to get rid of all of your cards and be the last one. Now, most people can go through one hand of Uno in probably like 5 minutes or so, right? We once, one single hand, 2 hours. That was one of the max. And this goes into the things that I learned with this, is that it is also like we like playing and we wanted the game to continue. So when someone was about to go out, we all piled on that person and made it almost impossible for them to win. And so like someone will be keeping track. They're like,
Reverse draw forward. Yeah.
right. Someone's about to go out. And so what do you got? What do you got? And so, and the skills that I learned is persuasion. How can you persuade, the other people playing that you are an ally, that you have their best interests at heart? Also resource management. You can't get rid of all of those draw fours, draw twos, right off the bat because you might need them. Another skill that, that I learned, is communication. How can you communicate to others what's going on? Asking for what you want. So again, the list goes on and on. And again, that's the simple game of Uno. But again, it's all up to how you look at it. Someone else may play the exact same thing, the exact same game, and have a different perspective, and that's completely cool based on their version of reality. So we talked about a lot. I want to make sure there's no other comments yet. Now we're starting to get into using play as an accelerant. And Kirsten, you haven't spoken a bit, so I'd like to turn it over to you to have some quick thoughts. And we're getting on time, so we're going to bring it all in so that people can take it all home. But Kirsten, what are your thoughts?
Well, just listening to these stories of play, 3 stories of play, and then of course the comments in the chat there, I am reminded of the quote that is wrongly attributed to Plato, which is, you can learn more about a person in an hour of play than hours of conversation. However, we didn't even have to play. We just had to talk about the play to learn so much about each other. So, imagine how much more, we can learn about the people around us. And, in this time, these challenging times, these VUCA times, we want to build those relationships and connections so that we can, because we have less opportunities to do so when we have these restrictions around us, and making up for lost time of lack of connection. So I just highly encourage people to do that part of play. And to the resilience point, this quote by Charles Darwin, which was, it's not the strongest and it's not the most intelligent species that survive, it's the ones that are the most adaptable to change. So, animals play and people, mammals play and people play, and, they play for a reason. And it's, it's not frivolous. It is about survival. And, when we don't have play, we're not being our best selves. And I feel like your audience are people who really want to be their best selves. And so, people have not historically valued play as much as the research is now showing us. How valuable it is to our everyday lives, not just our evenings, not just our weekends, but like to our work as well. So those are kind of my summary thoughts of our lovely playful conversation here.
Yes, April, what about you? What are some, how are we taking it home?
I mean, I think that, I'm going to also refer back to the chat because I saw a little bit more, Dee was saying, she was just recalling her times playing Uno that they'd play on for hours pre-kids, which I totally agree. I used to play Uno whenever like I was in the Philippines with my family, and like we would have like our whole groups and just like, as many people as we could get to play Uno, and it was just like that was always like the deck of cards that was in my bag. And then John said, as a child, I grew up around adults and didn't relate to other kids, so my version of play was more bookish and quiet, but the imagination was there. And his adult version is more like playfulness. He's a bit shy and reserved until he's not. We have a lot of people like that in the ASC, who identify, a little bit maybe more introverted. He says, I may be reticent to approach someone new, but once there's a strong connection, I will not stop talking. And I definitely feel that way as well. So anyways, I think, the key to this whole resilience conversation and just adaptability in general is, I keep on coming back to like making the choice and like attempting to be as open-minded as possible, because And that goes, not just for play and being resilient, but it comes in everything that you do. I feel like I constantly repeat myself over and over and over again, where it's all about like having the awareness about where you are, having some sort of vision about where you'd like to be, and then figuring out how to bridge the gap. And every person's journey, like even if they have the same goal, is going to look differently for each person. And so you have to kind of find your own path. But the like resiliency for me might be different than the resiliency that Kirsten builds, and it's different from the resilience that Gary builds. And we have to be able to go on that path, but be open-minded to understand that there's that journey, and that there's from A to point B, there's like 50 billion different ways of going. We can go straight, or we can go like squiggly, we can do a half circle or whatever, but there's all these different paths. And so we have to be open-minded to what's possible. We have to leverage some of the things from play, like the creativity, like to get there. And that will ultimately help us grow and continue on that growth mindset. So that's all I gotta share.
I love it. And just a few things to synthesize what we all said and leave you with a few action items so that you can, again, take advantage of this. We all said diversity is going to happen. We all said that, that's all part of life. Now, here is your invitation. When you are met with adversity, when you're met with, something that doesn't necessarily go your way, since you have a choice, imagine that you can bring the spirit of play into that situation. What would be different? So, and then how can you act on it? Because again, like Mary Poppins says, for every job that must be done, add an element of fun and snap, the job's a game. So that is on you. So you have no excuses. And if you want to exercise that resilience muscle, we talked about learning and growing. And so this is actually in alignment with what's going on in the Accountability Success Circle. If you're not in it, we'll tell you how to get in that in just a moment. But for those of you who are watching who are in it, check out this week's challenge that I did, where it was talking about a learning bucket list. What are the things that you want to learn? What are the concepts that you want to learn? What are the ideas that you want to learn? Spend 5 or 10 minutes, write that down, then look at that list and prioritize them based on excitement and timeliness. And what is one thing that you can do to get started like right away? And how can you add the spirit of play? Because as we said, if you're playing, you're going to learn it that much faster. So that's what I got. Feel free to leave some comments. I'm going to turn it right back over to April. She's over here. Yep, she's over there to close us out. She's down here. She's down here. She's right. She's right there.
At the bottom.
To close us out.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. If you were watching this live, we've got Dee and Terry and John, our diehards who come month after month, and we appreciate you. It's just great to know that the conversation is extending beyond our little mini bubble here in our Zoom live stream. But we know that people have got stuff going on. So if you're checking this out, on the replay, either as a member of the ASC or you're stumbling on this because you Googled resiliency in YouTube, we thank you for being here. And Kirsten, thank you so much for joining our conversation and giving us this, added flavor of to our conversation today. Kirsten is also a member of the ASC, so you gotta come and hang out with her because she's super, super cool. And you can communicate with us and all of these, the 300 plus people who are currently in the ASC, who are there to give you insight, resources, support, and just some more fun. And that's what we're all about. So again, if you are not a member of the Accountability Success Circle yet, you can check us out at accountabilitysuccesscircle.com. I know that's a little long, but it's worth the typing. Check us out. You can try us free for a month, see how that goes. And for those of you who are in the ASC, if you're catching this on the replay, which has, just been posted in the ASC, feel free to share your comments, what takeaways and ahas, so that we can continue this conversation with you. And for the rest of the month, we'll still continue to focus on the idea of adaptability until we have our new theme in September, which we'll announce at the end of the month. So come hang out with us, and thank you so much. And we will be back in a month with a new topic. So thanks, everyone, and we will see you soon.